Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Smack the Markets live trading stream. I hope you're well. So, before we get started, if we can just ask you to take a quick read through the usual risk disclaimer and make sure that you're comfortable with it. In brief, what we're saying is we're not licensed to be able to give advice. Any markets opportunities that we're discussing are purely our opinion and should be taken in the context of education. Okay, so as we take a look at the markets this morning, we've seen quite a bit of volatility coming through, and I think the main thing that's actually driving this, I think, is the dollar. We've seen some huge strength in the dollar overnight, and now we're seeing a little bit of a retracement coming through, and that's what's released markets like the Aussie to really sort of make a bit of a move here, and that's what we've seen that strength come through. So a few interesting ones starting to look a bit more interesting. Morning, everybody. We got Fergal online as well. Let me just check my my audio settings. Is the audio working okay? Can you just let me know? Is it picking up the correct mic? Morning, Michael. Hi, John. Hi, Martin. Okay, so it looks good. Thanks, Michael. So we've got good audio. That's good. Okay, so let's have a look at what's going on here, because we've got a few interesting things developing. Now, on Monday, of course, we had President's Day, so we had the US closed, and since then, the US has had some terrible weather conditions, which has been creating a huge amount of power cuts in the US. I'm not sure. I certainly had problems with my trading platform, which is a US trading platform, yesterday. I know a number of you did as well, and Sid posted into the trading room about the massive power cuts that they had over there sweeping across the country. So I just wonder if that had any impact on the trading activity, because if there's a lot of traders taken out, unable to get connected, then or with the flaky connections when they do get connected, then there's not likely to be as much activity. But if we have a look at what's happening now in the Dow, again, if we come down to these lower time frames, when I spoke about this on Monday, of course, we had President's Day. I said that, you know, we could be looking for, we got this sort of move higher in the thin Globex session. And then as the week sort of progressed and the liquidity came back in, we saw the market sort of dip back. It came back into this sort of structure levels. And I said, well, there's a couple of structure levels around this sort of price point. These highs here, you can see that the market's just pegging around that price point at the moment. So this was the most obvious place for the market to retrace. And I said, well, you know, if we get back into here, we could start to look for potential strength and potential sort of moves to the long side. And at the moment, that's sort of boring out on the sort of 4-hour time frame. If you come down to the 15-minute time frame, what we can see here is obviously the test to the low side here over the past couple of sessions, and the sort of support that the market's coming in and finding around that around these lows. Now that coincides with the levels that we discussed in Monday's sort of newsletter. In fact, the level is just sort of slightly higher than that. It's just we're looking so yeah, so just sort of up here, but effectively you can see that the market's sort of finding support around these sort of areas. And if the market is finding support here and this support holds, then there is only one way for the market to go, and that's likely to be to the long side. So the sort of thing that I'm looking at here is we got two very well defined trading structures now. So we've got these highs. I think possibly, let's drop this to a 1 hour chart. So we've got these highs in here. So we get a breakout above these highs, then we could be looking for, again, continuation to the long side. If we get these markets taken out to the short side, then of course we're going to see a significant move of weakness coming in. And the next sort of structure level I've got underneath here is down to that sort of 131, 115 area. So we've got that sort of tied in. Well, that's on the futures. So, we've got that sort of tied in around here on the same price structure on the cash market. Morning, Andrew. So, we've got some fairly well-defined structure here on the Dow. Remains to be seen how this actually sort of develops through the course of today. I think if price does get above here, and just note that on we've actually got some smack the markets pivots. That's London pivots in here as well, just around these highs. So a break above this could give us some support areas, and we could be seeing some opportunities to the long side. So again, something to keep an eye on for I think the through the day session on those sort of 15-minute charts and higher, and also for those higher time frames as well. Wrong button. There we go. Right. So also we discussed silver on Monday, and what we were looking for was a breakout above this sort of level, and we're looking for the next sort of trading window to the long side to be filled. Now we tried to get a position in here, and actually on a lower time frame, and this one got stopped out. This was quite an amazing situation that happened here. We had a influx of movement on the dollar, and that swiped out a lot of markets, as we saw, and that's why they all turned upside down yesterday. So at the moment here, silver not looking particularly, certainly not looking bullish. We'll sort of leave this one for the time being and see how this sort of develops. But precious metals at the moment are looking sort of more bearish today. So what have we got on our watch list today? So going back to some of these, I think since the morning prep that Fergal did this morning, we've got quite a bit of movement now in the Aussie. So I said that dollar seems to have weakened. So we had quite a bit of strength in the dollar overnight. That's now sort of weakened. So we're getting a retracement on the dollar, and that's allowed for markets like Aussie dollar to really start to sort of break out. And I think some of these are starting to look a little bit more interesting. So if we have a look at some of these Aussies first of all. So if you remember yesterday, I was keeping an eye. I was actually these Aussie dollars was on my watch list for longs, and then we got the sharp sell-off, and now we've got the sort of turnaround, and again the market sort of coming into areas of support on here, and this is something that that we can start to see on these higher time frames. You can see here through here we've got quite some key areas of support, and the market's just sort of come back into that area. This is also sort of evident on the daily time frame, so it's not particularly just tied to the lower time frames. It's to the higher time frames as well. And I was even, just before the sort of session started here today, I was keeping an eye on this on the lower time frames just to see if we get some sort of setup here. So now that the market's sort of pushed higher and we've got higher highs, higher lows, I think we can start to keep an eye on these and start to see if we get some sort of trend developing. At the moment, I'm just a bit sort of cautious whether that dollar is going to come back in again, and if we see more strength on that dollar, that may well start to push the Aussie down here. Let's just have a look. You can see that there's some sort of structure here that the market's sort of broken through, that price action sort of broken through there on the 1 hour chart. So it's early days, but similar, if we have a look at dollar Swiss, and if we see this on the daily time frame, we can see a few things sort of going on here. We've got this sort of inverted heads and shoulders. We've got a run to the long side. Now we've had the pullback, and now price action sort of finding support in here. So sort of quite an interesting sort of structure neckline through here that the market sort of come into. It sort of found support, and now with that strength in the dollar, today we've got weakness in the Swissy pretty much across the board. So this one is a good strength and weakness market supporting this to the long side. So again, if we come down to the lower time frames, we should see sort of path of least resistance long on this. So some sort of pullbacks in here, pullbacks into moving averages. The 1 hour chart looking quite reasonable now, with moving averages in the right order. Trend structures there. We've got momentum as well developing. So some sort of opportunities, perhaps even right the way down onto some of these lower time frames. So here on the 15, so the 15, the 30, the 60, we got some interesting areas just in here. We got sort of pivot points as well, coinciding in with those moving averages too. So sort of opportunities for a pullback in here. We start to see strength. Could be some areas here to look for positions for intraday plays on the dollar Swiss. Morning, Patricia. So what else have we got that's got strengths and weakness supporting them? The euro, in actual fact. So euro is actually sort of weak. If we get that continued strength in the dollar, then this one is set up for short moves. I'm not so sure if this one's going to be as easy to move, as easy to play to the short side. But start to see what we've got here. As I think Fergal sort of said, I think that 120 level looks very much like a target at the moment. We've also got the area through here where it's around that sort of 120 sort of 60 price point, and the market's just sort of bounced off there this morning. So I think the sort of safer thing is if we either get a retracement back to 121 and that round number, and then a trade off that to the short side, or wait for this lower level to get broken, and then we've got that clear trading window down to that sort of 120 price point. But at the moment we've got quite a bit of weakness in the euro across the board actually. And I say if we get that continued strength in the dollar, this one's just going to help this one to push down. We've already got weaker momentum in here as well. We've got divergence on this high. So a lot of things telling us that this didn't really have the sort of strength at the time. Now, one of the sort of oddball ones, I say oddball here, is the sterling. And the reason being is that this since the turn of the year, I think sterling across the board, I think has been a strong market, even when it's even when we're having a retracement day, it's still strong. And what you sort of got here is some very defined sort of structures here to the long side. Never easy to trade sterling. It's quite a choppy market, as you can see, but I get the sort of indication here. I think this wants to be testing that sort of 140 area, to the long side. So that's not got too far to go to that big round number, that sort of big main one level. And I think that's the near-term target for this market. So how's this one going to sort of fare with the current sort of strengths and weaknesses? So at the moment we've got sterling showing up weak, and we've had the retracement back in here. I think the play here is really going to be driven by the dollar, and I'm not looking at any trades on this at the moment. I'm just holding back, but from my morning scan, I sort of noticed that sterling here, cable, is looking sort of quite nice here on the 4 hour. We started to see evidence here of a bit of a turnaround. And again, if you start to come down the time frames, we come down to the sort of 15-minute chart. What we can't see here, what you can see here, I should say, is let's just sort of come back on this. You can kind of see here that we've got a neckline through here of previous support, and resistance, and now price is just pushing through this here again. So another reason I just prefer the market to be clear of this sort of structure to the long side. Obviously, if we're over this, then this does open up a much sort of freer pace here for potential move to the long side. So I'm liking, as you know, I've liked sterling for a long time. So I think cable, this is the sort of opportunity I'm looking at on cable above this sort of level here on the lower time frames. What I should say also is that there's a pivot point through here too. There's a smack the markets pivot right the way through that on top of that level. So it just sort of reinforces that level for me. And I think the sterling markets across the board, I think, are starting to look quite interesting. Now, if you come to, obviously Fergal spoke about the Euro GDP this morning. That's got strengths and weaknesses supporting that to the short side. Pound, where was I going on this? So pound Swissy is another one. So higher time frames. Here you go. We've got good trends here, not necessarily sort of ripe for a 4-hour setup just yet, but some of the lower time frames are starting to develop sort of fairly reasonable trends. What other ones have we got that are looking good at the moment? The pound yen, of course. Now, if we have a look at this on the 4-hour time frame, you can see at the moment here, very, of course, we know we had a trade on this on Monday, which kind of took all day to play out because of the really sort of low volumes and low momentum, but it did play out, and then the markets sort of moved. It sort of fired off overnight. So we've got this sort of pullback here now on the 4-hour time frame. So looking sort of quite nice around here. Obviously, the higher time frames still looking rather stretched. Lower time frames looking quite interesting though. And again, sort of thing I'm looking at here is, it more for stop placements than anything else. This we've just got some good placements here for stops as the market's moved higher, and I'm just sort of wandering through here underneath these lows. Looks quite a nice area here for stop placement. So breakouts above the highs, and again on this one we've actually got a technical 2-hour setup on here. I haven't got a 2-hour chart on this platform, but if you've got a 2-hour chart, you'll actually have a 2-hour setup here on pound yen. Now, it's not there are warning signs on this, and the reason why I'm not sort of jumping over it straight away is because, of course, as we've got these higher highs, we've got continued sort of weaker divergence coming in here as well. So I think we just need to be a little bit more patient and wait for the timing on this. So again, there might be something that sort of develops here with maybe we're developing a level through here on the 4-hour on the 15-minute time frame. That could give us quite a tight sort of setup. So another one that I've got on the watch list, waiting for see how this develops. And I think most of those sterling markets are looking quite good and worthy of keeping an eye on. Now, one other market here from me. Just scrolling through here. So, what markets have you got to take a look at this morning? Anything else to add? I really must tidy these up and put them into a better order. Yeah, so I agree, Patricia. I mean, that Swissy is the thing that's changed is of course that's been strong, and now it's weak today. So we got that retracement there, and it's just allowed for a lot of these markets to for things to sort of set up, and now they're starting to look quite interesting. Yeah, I agree, Andy. The Aussie Kiwi, this one also sort of looking quite nice. So you're getting a pullback now on this, on these sort of higher time frames. Let's see if the market sort of finds support in here. So the other market that I was going to take a look at, if I can't find it here, is the Singapore yen. So let me just have a. You look at that Singapore yen again. We've got a 2-hour setup, and you've got again on the lower time frames, you've got a consolidation underneath a pivot point as well. So fairly similar to sort of sterling yen. So very good question, Satar. Any thoughts on why the US dollar hasn't been stable for trading? Very good question. I think there's a number of things behind behind it. You've got from a technical perspective, you've got the the market just above that sort of 90 key sort of 90 level. I think it's well understood that many professionals and many funds and market participants are expecting sort of continued weakness in the dollar. So when you get sort of strength in the dollar, the question is, well, how much and how far can it go, and when are the shorts going to come in? Where is this going to be a nice place to sort of buy shorts? So I think there's one argument there. There's another argument on the sort of stimulus, which is being continuously debated, but more than likely to happen. And stimulus, of course, it sort of devalues a currency, so you're sort of diluting it. So that's likely to sort of add weight to the weakness. On the other side, you've got a new president in office now, and with attempting to do many good things for the country, which will support the currency. So you've got a lot of fundamental things taking place at the moment, as well as technical, and I think it's not making it particularly easy from anyone's sort of perspective. I think sort of certainly from a trader's perspective. That's why we're seeing that sort of huge amounts of volatility coming through. And of course, the dollar being the dollar is the world's central currency. It's having ramifications right the way through the markets. Hi, John. Are you just asking the same question as the Satar? Yeah, I think, same answer really. I think the only thing we can do, or the best way that we can attempt to understand this from a trader's perspective, is to look at the sort of general sort of structures on the dollar market. What we do know, and what I've demonstrated here over the past 2.5 years that we've been running Smack the Markets, is that the market, any market, but the dollar specifically, it's a very technical market from a technical structure point of view, and the levels that we identify in the charts, we find that the market often runs from one trading, it completes our trading windows. So our sort of methodology of identifying these trading windows, these structure points, and then the theory that these trading windows, when the market moves into them, that these trading windows then close, so the market moves to the other side of that trading window to close it. That has been borne out time and time and time and time again, and very rarely does the market turn halfway through and fail to complete a trading window. So, it does happen, but not very often. So, from that point of view, what we can see, and what we saw yesterday, was we saw a trading window get completed this week. Then we saw the market literally gap up and break into a new trading window and sort of move halfway through it. So my theory is that that trading window is more likely to get closed rather than for the market to turn around on its heels and run the opposite way. And that means that that trading window moves up to that sort of just underneath that 91 price level. So that means further strength in the US dollar. So that's how I'm sort of reading it, and that's based upon the probabilities, success probabilities of my method of understanding the dollar and what it's likely to do. I have a higher probability that it's likely to do that. So that's my sort of expectations, is that we see some continued strength in the dollar until it gets to that decision point. And then once it gets there, we ultimately then allow the market to decide what it's going to do then, because it will make another decision. And that decision, of course, doesn't necessarily have to be that it breaks that level and continues going in the same direction as the trend. It could just reject that, and we could be seeing the move in the opposite direction again. But it's so if we just see what the dollar complex is doing at the moment. So when we came onto the live stream this morning, we had a bout of retracement of weakness in the dollar. That was only a sort of a temporary pullback, but now across the whole dollar complex, we're now seeing strength again now. So that's pushing markets like the dollar, Aussie dollar, the cable is pushing all those back down again. So again, it just indicating that some of these, it's a bit too sort of short term to sort of start jumping into these sort of straight away. You have to sort of wait for things to develop. And again here, I think that dollar move is certainly sort of helping here the likes of our Aussie Kiwi. So sort of things that we could start to look at here, perhaps. Let's see how this, how sort of markets like this sort of develop. I mean, this is likely to be a huge candle by the time this sort of finishes now, but okay. So what else have we got going? Anything else that we've got fairly close this morning here to set up to discuss? Aussie Swiss, of course, that's flown up and hit those double pivots, and now that's looking a bit extended, but at least we got that breakout here. You see that here on the on those lower time frames. I'm just going through my my watch list at the moment just to see if there's anything else that's looking close that we can discuss here. If not, I'll pick it up in the trading room once things start to develop. Okay, so the euro's continuing to see a bit of weakness in there. In fact, our Aussie dollar probably starting to look a little bit more cleaner on this now. As I mentioned before, there's a couple of pivot points here, and we're starting to get that pullback now. So starting to see a bit of a development of trend structure on the Aussie. This could start to give us some better structure here to look for a trade, actually. So the Aussie has strengthened this morning. It was weak. It's now sort of strengthened. It's early days, but it's a good one to keep on the watch list. Yeah, John, so Euro GDP, I agree. That one's a nice looking one as well. It's also, I mean, Great British Pound technically is weak this morning, as well as the euro, but as I said, the pound predominantly has been quite a strong market, and we've seen that sort of strength. So the likes here of sort of Euro GDP, we can see that sort of continuing decline. There was a time when I used to trade this market sort of so much, and yet for the past few years I've hardly traded it. It's just the market structures. So here, looking fairly good. So the one thing I'd say with Euro GDP is if we get a setup up here into these levels, then we really want to be clear before the lows. And the reason I say that is because we've got a pivot point through here, and the market has bounced off it as well. And when you find that happening, you often find that the market is is recognise that, and that's going to be a bit tough for the market to get through again. So, not that it won't get through it. It's just the fact that we might not expect the market to slice through it in the run to make a lower low, and that's really what we want to be a clear trade. So as long as we got enough here to be able to get clear before that pivot point, then we're that'll be the safest option. So yeah, Andy, I've looked at Aussie Kiwi. It's a nice one. It's just going in one direction now, isn't it? Okay, so we've got a fair bit of movement coming across through the board at the moment. So let's start to wrap up, and we'll keep an eye. We've got quite a lot to keep an eye on here in the markets this morning, and once we start to see anything developing, we'll give you an update in the trading room. Again, if you're seeing anything of interest, please post it in the trading room as well, because we've got a fair bit of movement and quite a lot to keep an eye on. Okay, everybody. So let's start to wrap it up, and hope you found it useful, and I'll speak to you shortly in the trading room. Thanks, everyone, and bye for now. Morning, Andy. Didn't see you there. Super.